Dear colleagues, I continue my project analysis of article, and I like it, and I hope it's also interesting for you. Please put your reaction, your likes. It's important for my YouTube channel. And this time, I want to speak about very interesting, brand new article that was published in Journal of Endodontics. Uh, Article about effect of irrigation needle design or root canal disinfection and cleaning. Amazing group of Professor José Siqueira from Brazil did again, and piece of art as I see. What we know about classification of irrigation needle that we can have in our clinic. We have open-ended needle and closed-ended needles. If we will see inside of open-ended needles, we can see a three different type. We can see a flat needle and bevel needle and notch needle. Personally, I prefer notch needle, but no real basic for this my choice exists. I think maybe it's some way of my regular work during many years. Here we will see the group of closed-ended needle. We also here can see different types. For example, side-wended with one exit, double side-wended needle, and multi-wended needle. All the story of closed-ended needle was the idea to prevent apical extrusion, to prevent anal cell accident. And by the way, it doesn't work. What we know about irrigation through this needle, we know that it's topic. It's very interesting for many researchers and for many new developments. For example, we can see last years on the market plastic needle done from polypropylene with closed tip. And for example, in this design by Dentsply company, True Anatomy irrigation needle, two lateral exit, two lateral ports. This needle have in the apical part diameter 30 gauge, and it have a taper 0.4. By the way, metal needle mostly have no taper, zero taper. Why they did it, I have no idea. Maybe it's depend on the production process. I don't know. Interesting article was published by amazing group of Christos Botiokis together with Paul Wesseling inside and Dr. Wanderslew, we can see. And it's very, very interesting because we see that when we push with the same power on the syringe, we have a different way of NO from the needle. All open-ended needle can push NO 3 millimeter further, and with closed needle, we have just 1 millimeter. And it's very important because after this research, we have an interesting recommendation in the literature that if you work with open and a needle, you can put it 3 millimeter shorter to the working length. But if you work with closed-ended needles, you will put it 1 millimeter from the working length. But again, it was the idea of this research, finite element analysis research, but no real examination was done before. And the article that I want to show you today, try to check it, if it's okay. By the way, in the same article, you can see additional interesting information. The difference was not just the distance of NO cells that pushed from the needle, but also an apical pressure of the NO cell. And today, when the standard's not just important that NO cell will be in some area, but also the pressure, because the pressure of flow can disattachment of biofilm from the root canal, and it will, of course, increase disinfection. It's very important to see that we have a real difference between open-ended and closed-ended needle, and of course, see the multi-wended also almost zero pressure. Important story. Okay, during this research by group of Professor José Siqueira, they choose finally, it was not from beginning it was a bigger amount of the extracted human mandibular molar, and then they had 45 extracted human mandibular first molar with the same with the same system in mesial root, Vertucci 2 type tip, 2 canal that connected an apical part through the isthmus. They check it firstly by regular X-ray, they check it by introduction on file 10 through the canal, and finally by microcomputer tomography. Very important. All the teeth, of course, primary endo, no previous endo, closed roots, no open apices, no obliteration, no resorption. In the first stage, and by the way, the curvature was medium. Why it's important? Because from the beginning, they opened the canal to K file number 20, okay? And we understand if we will have a very, very strong curve, we can have a problem when we work with stainless steel up to 20. And after they did some preparation in ultrasonic bath with NaCl, with distilled water, to have the same level of situation. And after they started a super interesting and important part, specimen contamination. And they use a centrifugation method to put inside some broths, okay, some culture media. And after they also, through centrifugation and ultrasonic baths, introduced inside also mixed bacteria. And this mixed bacteria, by the way, they took from voluntaries, I think students, from subgingival plaque. They also put inside some Enterococcus faecalis, and they prepare all this culture through 30 days and 37 temperature by changing every week a culture medium. They was sure 100% that all teeth was infected in the same way. By the way, when they started the instrumentation, they checked S1 point of the examination that all the canal was infected. Very important, and the same infection. Super important part of this research, if you will ask me. After they start instrumentation, as we see many times in researchers from Brazil, they use reciproc 2508. Personally, who's know my lecture, I don't like reciprocal approach. I don't like single file approach. But this is the situation here. They work how it was recommended by manufacturer, free cycle, every cycle free movement. After each cycle, they rinse it with the NaCl. And what they wrote in the article was a little bit strange for me. They wrote that after each cycle, not just 2 millimeter NaCl, they put it 1 and 3 millimeter short of working length. I think it's some mistake because it's impossible to put irrigation needle 1 or 3 millimeter short of working length before you prepare all the canal. But you know, sometimes mistake is fallen during the work and during the writing the article. Also, a very interesting part of this story that we can see that apical patency was checked with hand file 15 after each irrigation. First of all, again, it's a huge dispute in literature if we need or don't need apical patency. But even people that do it, they do it mostly with K file 10. Why they do it with 15? I think it's, again, depend on the story of reciprocation, and we know that reciprocation file push a huge amount of debris, and maybe 10 was not enough. I don't know. It's, you know, it's just my proposition. After preparation, after full preparation, each canal was irrigated with 5 millimeter, 70% EDTA, and then again with 5 millimeter, 2.5 NaCl. What we understand from this story, that no agitation was done in this article. It's really just needle irrigation, important point, and that we sure 100% that to the apical part, we had 5 millimeter of NaCl. All canal during preparation received 15 millimeter per canal. They wrote it, but again, in apical part, I can't be sure that all 15 millimeter was an apical part because the NaCl can go just after full instrumentation. It's also interesting. It's again about disputes, how many NaCl we will use during our endodontic work. Again, the question, for all the time or to calculate from the moment that we prepare apical part. Interesting. And here after this full instrumentation and full irrigation, they check again bacteriological sample, S2. Okay, what's additional amazing point is super important that all these research they do inside special box, that inside of the box they have a temperature plus 37 degree like human body. I think it's important. Not all researchers agree with me and with Jose Siqueira, but part of them do it last time. Okay, and finally what they do, they cut 5mm apical millimeter, and they again check with how they check, by the way, the microbiology checking with paper point and PCR technology. They check the microorganism inside, and also in apical part they use small bore to take some dentin in out layer of the canal. It's interesting. Okay, they had here 3 groups. The all difference was the type and place of irrigation needle. Open-ended flat needle, they put 3mm short of the working length. Closed-ended, from metal and from plastic, from polypropylene, they put 1mm shorter on the working length. Also, the difference between closed-ended was that one of them was side-wended, just one exit, and second was 2 lateral ports, 2 exits. Okay. Also important that all these needles were 30 gauge needle, and again, it's a huge dispute. It's a good idea in clinical work to use 30 gauge needle because for the human it's impossible to push it in very stable manner. And by the way, what it support my idea is that they standardize flow rate not by human, they do it not by people, but by very special pump that was developed to Reading company, an old pump of SIF system named Vaitia, and they connected to the needle, and the same velocity, 4 milliliter per minute, they use for all these needle. Again, it's very important, to calibrate all the group. Finally, results. Okay, results they check by microbiological approach, but also by microcomputer tomography. Microcomputer tomography helped them again to check anatomy and to divide tooth in the similar group, and also to check the situation with accumulated debris after the end of preparation and irrigation. Great. What do we have? When we try to see the result through all the canal, we have no statistically significant difference between 3 groups. But again, when we look for the number, okay, the best number, the best reduction of bacterial counts was an open-ended needle, 99-95%. Again, no difference, statistically significant difference between open and closed groups. Results look like amazing, but again, please remember that the methods, it's paper point inside of the canal. Here we're speaking about bacterial counts decreasing in main prepared canal, nothing about what we have inside of the dentin, tubules, nothing about isthmuses, of course. Please understand the result, but the work in the main canal is good, and no difference between types of needle, and no difference by the way that one needle was 3 millimeter and one needle was 1 millimeter for the working length. Much more interesting was the story just an apical part. As we know, Professor Jose Siqueira, his idea, not just his idea, the idea is apical strategic of dome, the most important part of the root canal system that can influence result for a long run. And it's super important to see the situation with bacteria here. Again, when we are speaking about total counts, bacterial counts, no difference. But when we try to see the specimen that showed qPCR negative result for bacteria, we can see statistical significant difference. For example, in open-ended group, 11 from 80, 61% of specimen was negative. And in polypropylene needle group, just 28%. It was statistically significant difference. By the way, also close-ended with one exit. Group was 50%, from 61 to 50 in this amount of specimen. No statistical significant difference. We understand how statistic works, but also in this small group with a polypropylene needle, we see the difference. This is important, okay? The story of debris, no difference between all three groups. The same amount of debris was inside of the canal after irrigation. Okay, of course, in the discussion part, they try to explain why we have a better result with open-ended group. And they try to explain by showing us that the difference not just in the length of the flow from the needle, but also by flow pattern. And this flow pattern maybe have some influence on disinfection. Personally, I think that from the same article, again, I go back to this picture, maybe a very important part that can explain the difference, also the apical pressure of irrigation that created inside of the open needle and half of this in closed needle. Okay, conclusion of the article, scientific conclusion of the article, that when we use a needle and we know how to put needle of different design in the similar antibacterial and cleaning situation, and we use all our things the same, we see that open flat needle yield more cases negative for bacteria compared to closed-ended needle with two lateral outlets, ports. Okay, it's, you know, it's scientific conclusion. But when I read the article, I try to do my own conclusion from clinical work. Not always it's possible, but in this specific case, I did my own conclusion. First, no need an expensive needle. All of us know that on the market, closed needle much more expensive than open needle. First. Second, super important part, no need in danger proximity to working lengths. Last time in many lectures and congresses in the world, you can hear the people that try to convince you put the irrigation needle 1 millimeter less to working lengths. I personally think it's very dangerous. I think we must all the time be in balance between efficacy and safety. And to put irrigation needle 1 millimeter short of working length, it's a very dangerous story. Sometimes we have mistaken working length determination. Sometimes we have some type of resorption that we have no idea. Open apices, perforated apices, and all the things can increase the danger of NSL accident. This is my conclusion. And of course, all the time that I see the article, I have my own idea. What I want to check in this model, okay? And I want to see my question for further researchers. For example, in this research is very interesting to check what about with apical extrusion? With apical extrusion of debris and of NSL. Second, of course, what about agitation? How agitation in the last part after EDTA will change the situation also with level of disinfection and surely with debris and irrigation protocol. Again, here we saw the classical protocol, final EDTA and NSL, but from 91, from Paul Abbott, we know that the best approach is EDTA and NSL EDTA. Because if we do EDTA and NSL EDTA, it's much better to remove smear layer and to remove debris, and after to do agitation and improve disinfection. And of course, I want to check the newest approach. The newest approach is instead of EDTA, all the way of irrigation to use together NSL and HDP mixture. Of course, as I explained, I don't like the idea of reciprocation, and I prefer multi-file system, file after file, up to 3004. It's super interesting for me to see the result. The same group of Jose Siqueira already show us that multi-file system have concert effect on disinfection. And again, because I so like the balance between efficacy and safety, personally, I don't use needle number 30. Personally, I work with 27 gauge and I go just 4-5 millimeter from working length. And I want to check how this type of irrigation with open needle and agitation after will influence this story of disinfection and cleaning. This is my approach to this article. I hope it was interesting for you. Okay, if you want to see something interesting from me, I want to invite you to my 2-day course that will be held in Tallinn in November, all about instrumentation and all about obturation. I did my own classification of many instrumentation systems, and I have my own classification of complexity of root canal system and how we can manage it. And the same I did with obturation methods. If it's interesting for you, through this QR code, you can have all material about this 2-day course. Have a nice day. Bye.